Good morning, everybody. We are cutting into programming right now with a bit of a heavy heart. An absolute treasure of South Louisiana, and certainly a family member here at WAFB, has passed away. Our Donna Britt, losing her battle to ALS after an incredible fight, one that she purposely and proudly and strongly made public. But again, passing away this morning, surrounded by her family. And we wanted to make sure that you knew what was going on with, I know, somebody that was a part of y'all's lives as well for so many years. And so that's what we're going to do here this morning. For the next little bit. We're going to remember our good friend, our family member, and we're going to talk with some folks who spent a lot of time working here and spending their time with Donna.
I think when you think of WAFB Channel 9, when you hear the name, the logo, the number, you think Donna Britt. And so we are sharing this moment together. We're speaking with some of the most influential people in her life, people that she's touched too. And we know many of you who are watching grew up with Donna Britt.
I want to make sure that her husband Mark, right there, son Louis, daughter Annie, know that they are first and foremost in our thoughts this morning. As we kind of stroll through memory lane here. And I think Donna was always one to, to say that she always looked on the bright side is an absolute understatement of her purpose, her power, her passion, her existence. She brought that every single day. And I think that she would want us to do that today, even though we're going to struggle through some of this, because she was and will remain family, but we're going to get through telling some of these stories because, oh gosh, we just absolutely owe so much to such an incredible woman. And these pictures don't even begin to tell it. But you'll notice right now, Liz, most of these out in the community, she loved.
Many of you approach all of us, I know this because we talk about it a lot, say I met Donna at ringing the bell, the kettlebell with Salvation Army at the Walmarts, or singing in her Christmas choir concerts, or participating in community events, at parades, at Mardi Gras events. So many people got to meet Donna up close and personal and say, I love you, which is so special.
And she took on the biggest of challenges and made sure that it was public. So everybody knew, hey, look, I can do this. You can come out and be a part of this. We can actually make some headway here from Race for the Cure, Relay for Life, the Salvation Army that you mentioned. It's just, she took on the biggest of the big because it was important to her. So many of these things impacted countless lives in our community. And so Donna wanted to be out there to make the access very easy. And she did that for so many people. And when she signed off for that final day in June of 2018, and this studio was packed. You're seeing right here, Association of Broadcasters awards right here. She was inducted into the Hall of Fame. First Hall of Fame class, by the way. First of one of four. They're just incredible. To think back to when she signed off, and this studio was packed with people who had worked with her, and you realized that even though this studio was filled with so many people, it wasn't even a drop in the bucket, those that she impacted.
And you know, on that last day, the person who was right next to her side was our very own Greg Merriweather, who was her co-anchor for the last couple of years. She spent her time at this desk here at Channel 9, and Greg is joining us live here from his home. Greg, thank you for joining us this morning for such a heartbreaking day here, but to remember our special Donna Britt.
It is, Liz, and I apologize for the delay here. We're here at home, but I will say that Donna, the broadcaster, was one person that she will stick with a lot of people. I know Donna as the co-anchor, and Donna that I sat across from in the newsroom, and but I go back far enough to remember Donna, who pretty much helped raise me here at Channel 9 between her and George Sells. I learned so much from them. Starting here shortly after 9/11, so I feel like when it comes to my professional life, I pretty much grew up with Donna, and she will always have that kind of special piece of my heart for sure. Donna, the thing that I always will remember about her and was so terrific is that no matter who she met, it was not a stranger. She would hug their neck, and that was just something to behold sometimes, because sometimes when you're on TV and people recognize you out in public, you could be doing all kinds of things, pumping gas, whatever it may be. It didn't matter with Donna. She would stop and talk to the people, and that was just what was so terrific about her. So we put together this story here to kind of give you the sense of what we're feeling today here at Channel 9 and what many of you feel here as we look back on the terrific life and career of Donna Britt.
And I'm Donna Britt.
If ever there was a museum of what went on in the last 4 decades in Baton Rouge, could you find a better tour guide than Donna Britt? She was as well known as family and just as familiar in any home. South Louisiana adopted its darling Donna Britt, a true treasure that thankfully found us. She was always there as sometimes the storms of life rolled in.
Good evening. It's taken all day to even begin to recover from what nature did in just a split second. No evidence of a huge chemical release, and so neighbors around the plant have been very concerned about whether they can open their windows.
You felt like she always had your back.
The time is now safe.
In the late 1970s at LSU, Donna was well on her way to an almost certain career in music. But it turns out a simple trip to St. Francisville changed that. You see, WFB legend Carlton Cremines was on his way to his camp there in St. Francisville when he heard a Donna James on his radio. He says he figured that smooth voice would be a great fit on his television station. And at WAFB, Donna's new music became the accompaniment of our area's triumphs and times.
And Donna Britt, well, our top story breaking at this hour.
The big and the small, the good and what could be better. Either way, you trusted what she told you. And she wasn't alone.
This is Newsline 9 at 10 with George Sells. Donna Britt.
When you were a little kid, you probably thought they were married. Not quite, but just about as close to a perfect partnership as you could get. The legendary team of Donna Britt and George Sells.
And you know who could have a better partner? We have no common interests, none.
Well, opposites attract, right?
Thanks for watching WAFB.
In her almost 4 decades on the news, Donna seemed like a real-life friend on the other side of the screen. And that's because she was, delivering the news through the years in her own style.
I wasn't going to tell this, but I couldn't go to the game tonight, so I drove by Alex Box Stadium with my windows down, hoping to hear a ball crack against the bat. Yes, Baton Rouge's sister city is a beautiful one.
And finally, not far from here, just a short drive, is a major port city known for its raucous nightlife with a population about the size of New Orleans. In Aix-en-Provence, France, I'm Donna Britt with photographer James DeGraw, WAFB News.
The main reason Donna felt like a friend was you could hug her neck as she walked alongside of you and cheered you on.
Santa came to say.
You could feel her rattle your eardrums with a bell. You could call her and she would be there, everywhere.
My husband and I would go walking around the lakes, and it was something we did every day. But we couldn't understand why I started stumbling during all of this.
Donna first had a minor surgery to remove a bunion on her right foot, but not long after, she suddenly started losing feeling in her other leg. This is footage of Donna anchoring when things got worse. What the viewers didn't know, behind the desk, Donna says her left leg started to feel like jello. Soon, her balance was off, way off. But because you are family, Donna clued you in.
Well, hi. 3 days of testing in Houston, Texas. 6 doctors, 12 tests, shows that I have ALS.
And like family, you got to follow her every step of the way, even as those steps got harder and harder to take, eventually down an uncertain and unwelcomed road.
The speech pathologist says I have changed the culture of my personality. She said she was watching me work the hall, in other words, talk to everyone you saw, She said, you're going to have to stop talking as much if you want to preserve your voice. She said, I've never had an anchor woman for a patient.
Our world of television news flickered when Donna revealed her diagnosis. But so many of you stayed tuned in to her ups and downs, your words and encouragement now holding her up as her legs and hands and eventually her lungs and all the things that help us move started to fail.
Thanks, WAFB, for a wonderful, challenging, stimulating career. Thank you for also being my friends. I also want to thank you, the viewer. So many of you made me a member of your family. I love that.
In her last days and without the hectic schedule of TV news, Donna got to spend more time with her kids and see Louie and Annie become the great people she'd hoped they'd be. And she got something as simple as quiet evenings at home with her husband, Mark. In the end, and in her own words, Donna did not want to be seen as someone dying of ALS, but instead as someone living with ALS. In the final days, Donna nearly lost her ability to communicate. But ALS, as evil as it may be, couldn't silence Donna Britt. A great communicator will always find a way, and Donna did up until the very end.
I have stood on the shoulders of giants.
Donna Britt was always our guide and our friend, that unexpected bright spot in dark times. That super smart, terrifically talented, and goofy next-door neighbor who made your kids laugh and made you glad you moved in. Donna Britt, truly as well known as family and just as familiar in any home.
All right, well, we like to pay tributes to our friends, especially ones that stay with us for so long like that. I'll just say this about Donna. She was the perfect person that when you brought your family in town, and I just lost my mom in August, my mom thought the world of Donna. Until the very end, she asked me about her. And the reason why I bring that up is because when you would bring somebody to the station, Donna was the first one to get up and go hug them, and she just made them feel like they were home. And with me being so far away, my parents knew I was in good hands. So we will miss you, Donna. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Greg, and thank you. That was a beautiful portrayal of her life and her legacy here in Baton Rouge, not only as our family member, but as the community's mom, I like to say. And everything you had to say about her is absolutely the truth, and she's someone special to you and all of us, so thank you for sharing what you had to say.
Greg, love you, brother. And he's right when he talks about community mom. There was a security blanket that came with Donna and George being in this studio. For a young reporter, going out, and the ability to get out there and learn your craft and make a few mistakes, because that's the only way you learn. Make a few mistakes and realize and understand that it's okay, because when it gets back to the studio, Donna and George have you covered.
Yeah.
I'll never forget some of these stories I would come in with, and she was like the mother in the newsroom. I will never forget the words, and she would say it all the time, "Matt, baby." I can still hear it. I can still hear her voice saying, just those two, "Matt, baby, how are you?" And then we go into a whole conversation. There's this story I did. It's just the silliest story on LSU and some tickets and how they were doing point systems with their students and that kind of thing. And I ran all over campus doing this thing, and I get back and she saw the story and she goes and she started with, "Matt, baby, they need to give you a scholarship after something like that." And so she made it a point to find you.
Yeah.
She made it a point to make sure that you were doing okay so that you could do your job and get back out there and serve the community, because there was nothing that was going to stop her from serving the community. And so to Greg's point of being a mother, it's absolutely true. A mentor, absolutely. An inspiration for all of us. You can pick all these synonyms and you feel still like you're kind of understating the reality of Donna and her meaning.
And who would know better than that than her longtime co-anchor, George Sells?
On the phone with us this morning, George, I imagine, I can't even imagine all the stories you have. You know, we can stay on as long as we want here, but we are curious on this day. George, your thoughts of your good friend, Donna.
Oh, well, as you say, I could go on and on. But one thing that has not been mentioned in that excellent rundown of Donna's life, could you give me some mix minus here? She was a consummate musician.
Yeah.
After the 10 o'clock news at night, she would sit there and compose music. And she didn't need a pitch pipe. She had perfect pitch, or the closest thing thereto possible. She would just hear it in her head. One time, I was a ham radio operator, and I played some tones for her. And I said, "What is that saying?" And I wanted to know what the code was. And she said, "Oh, that's C below middle C." She just knew it all. But she was composing for LSU, some play at LSU, but a lot of people didn't know that. She was a music major. Mm-hmm. She got her scholarship at LSU as a musician, and she was in the band. But she couldn't get a scholarship as a musician because she was a transfer, I think, from southern Mississippi. So they gave her an athletic scholarship. So Donna Britt stood in line with all the athletes. Everybody else got theirs from another organ, but she's standing with these jocks every year picking up her scholarship. And they wondered why she was there, this cute little gal. She was 5'6".
Well, she did so much, and what's crazy about this moment right now, I know Donna is looking down and listening to this interview and saying, "George, Matt, Liz, shut up." Right now, my perfect pitch is going nuts because the audio, go figure, at a time like this is a little bit off. George, we're gonna get back with you here shortly, but that's exactly. Because I heard the legend of Donna's perfect pitch, and I'm like, are you kidding? What does that even mean? He's right. It was true. Yeah. She could read it, she could measure it, she could hear it, she could know it, and I guarantee you, right then, she's going, guys.
Let's try this again, George. Let's try it again.
Let's not do this. Yeah. And we're going to be talking with some other folks here as well, as we kind of remember through all this. You know, she had the ability to turn on a dime. With what she was covering in the moment, the ability to go from the hard that needed to be talked about to the soft and the gentle that wanted to be talked about. And her ability to do that was an incredible inspiration for me. I know we on the morning show always try to cover a little bit of everything. Yeah. And she's kind of one of those that you looked at as the ability to cover it all and do it so well. We just saw some of the retirement billboards right there.
And that speaks volumes. When I'm out in the community, I've been here only 4 years, so you've worked with Donna for a long time, but it is always the best feeling when people come up to you and approach you and say, you know how much I love Donna Britt? And they'll search through their phone in their photos to try to show me a photo when they met her at Race for a Cure, or they met her at Albertsons, or they met her shopping out with her husband. Like, it's just amazing to see how Donna became a family member to so many people in our community, and then to their children too.
And think about how many photos you take with your phone these days, and the ability for people to call those things up so quickly because they're the ones you save. Yeah. Those are the ones you hold on to. No, I know right where it is. That's nothing I deleted. That's nothing I dumped onto my computer. That's right here on the phone.
They're keepsakes.
And exactly. It's just it's a small, tiny measure of an impact that she had on so many people. And as you look at some of these pictures, and it was funny, when I first got here, and we're going back, I guess, 17 some odd years, it was, I'd be working nights and dayside or whatever the heck it was, and after the show, Donna would often leave and George would hang on, he'd stay in the studio. I didn't know why Donna was leaving. I didn't know where she was going. She was going because she had appointments out in the community. She wasn't going anywhere else. Her most important job, she'd tell you, her most important job was not always in these halls and walls here. Her most important job was, you're looking at it.
Yeah.
She would be out there. Her time off was this, right here. You're seeing it. Her commitment to community was her time off. When she wasn't here, she was there. And we made sure she made sure that we heard all of those stories.
And what I love is that she brought her children, obviously 2 children, Annie and Louie, and from what I learned, she actually got to meet her granddaughter. Her daughter Annie had a baby, and she got to meet her granddaughter this year. So it's something special that Donna Britt got to meet her grandbaby in a challenging year, despite all of her challenges. And if you know Donna, you know she perseveres. She's fought through a lot in her life. She's navigated a lot in her health.
Well, look at this. I mean, this is one of the ones, and there she is, look at her.
Yeah, a vibrant smile, and you know that when Donna's going to say something, she's going to love on you. She's got that forceful effect to make you feel like everything is going to be okay. And I think that's for whatever personally is happening in your life, whatever awful things are happening in the community, she had a special way of making you feel like it was going to be okay.
That race for the cure, and our Jay Grimes is actually in the studio with us. He's gonna be joining us in a little bit. But that race for the cure, you'd see those guys out there all the time. And the whole idea, right, with race for the, you march these survivors right around, and you praise right on, you throw all that on. But I tell you, the march and the parade would slow down when they got by Donna, because everybody wanted to talk to Donna. Everybody wanted to say hi to Donna, want to have a conversation with Donna. Because it was not just somebody that you saw in this little box in the living room, it was absolute family. Everybody knew Donna, and that is not hyperbole. Everybody knew Donna, and they knew her for getting out there in their neighborhoods, making their lives, their struggles, but also their celebrations. Worth it for everybody.
Yeah,
she brought those stories.
To be there with them.
She really did.
Yeah. And this, what you're looking at now, is an announcement from her husband, Mark Ballard, announcing this morning that Donna Britt, the face of WAFB TV until stricken with ALS, died peacefully this morning at home with family around her. That announcement coming at 8:49 this morning on Thursday, January 21st of 2021.
And Mark obviously knows that everybody right now, the family is first and foremost in our thoughts. But he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And when he talks about the face of WAFB, for decades, the name mentioned first. And so you talk a lot about pillars of a community, and we've had these conversations. And that is not also, you talk about that, and you don't feel like you're doing her service enough because of her service to community. A pillar just isn't quite enough. But when you talk about family, obviously the immediate family in our thoughts, but so many people in the viewing area having these same emotions and going through these same feelings right now because she was in that living room and she was there all the time.
And to think how special she is, not only to all of you, to welcome her into your home for decades to come. She was a mainstay here. Every day we'd see her, you strike up a conversation with her, and she just makes you feel loved.
You know, it is something to be able to talk about it in terms that you know, and we both got the opportunity to work with Donna, and I got the opportunity to work with her for a very long time. But it's always fun to reminisce with those who knew even longer. And there are those still in this station, still in this newsroom, who have even longer memories, and I'm not putting them out there, but he knows. Chief Meteorologist Jay Grimes got the opportunity to work with Donna for such a very long time, and stood in those studios with her for such a very long time, and was able to have all those funny, zany conversations. And we're fortunate to have him with us this morning as well.
Hey guys, a tough day for that.
Still listening, standing by, but upset. Right now, Donna is very upset with us. She is critiquing this, I guarantee you. That's what's going on right now. Because that's what, Donna ain't gonna have this. Guys, don't do this for me.
That's it.
Make sure it's right. And then, you know what, that's the thing about her. She would always say, go over, look over it again, make sure you're good. And she would be one of those ones in the newsroom, especially with the young reporters, the ability to go over it and make sure it was right.
Yeah. I like to say critiquing lovingly.
There you go, critiquing lovingly. And Jay, you got to see that firsthand every evening.
Yeah, you know, since we were having a little bit of a hiccup there, one of the things about Donna was when she would correct you, she would do it with talent and grace.
Yes.
Most of us aren't quite so kind.
No.
Yeah, you know, the whole community grieves today. It's really something that in some ways we kind of knew was around the corner, but it's not something you ever really prepare for. We do want everyone to know out there, though, that Donna passed peacefully, and that's the best thing that we could have hoped for her. I did have the good fortune of working with her for a little over 20 years, 15 years, sitting literally right next to her. And so I got to see all sides of her, and sometimes the frustrating part for me was there wasn't a dark side in there anywhere. And she was surrounded by George Sells on one side and Jay Grimes on the other, and there was sometimes some really dark cover there. So she really was the balance. And when I think of them as the anchor team, and let's face it, they were the consummate anchor team in the heyday. And George was the voice and the conscience of Baton Rouge, but Donna was the heart and soul. And I think that everyone sees it that way. In fact, you never wanted to hear George tell a good story because Donna was going to do it so much better. And likewise, sometimes when it was really a dark moment, you liked having George give you the facts and then Donna put it into some context. And that, I think, is what endeared that pair to Baton Rouge and really taught Baton Rouge who Donna Britt was, which was certainly a caring person who put our community above everything else. And you've seen it with some of Greg's reporting and a look back in history. You've also maybe not seen it, but probably felt it when you saw some of our young reporters who were mentored by Donna over the years come on camera, and then in like the happy mother, she got to watch them move off and be even more successful in other markets. So her footprint is gigantic in our community, but it's spread all over the country by her impact on younger people who came through here, some that worked here, some that didn't, but people that were impacted by the way she approached making sure that there was a heart behind the story that she told you and told everyone else. I was fortunate because for me, this really was kind of being thrown into the fire. I had no background whatsoever. And let me tell you, folks, in this business, people can be tough on you. And Donna was the one person who just kept coaching me along as well. So in some ways, even I was tutored by her, and of course also by Mike Graham and by George to some extent. But I can tell you, it was much more fun talking with Donna than those other two.
Yeah, well.
So I had the great opportunity to work with the lady, and again, I think that, and it came out in Greg's story that she wanted to be the person who lived with ALS, and she did it with grace. And folks, you hear it all the time, but it just can't be said enough. She really loved you and this community.
Were you ever surprised, Jay, at a moment out in the community by the community's reaction to her? Was there ever that moment where you said, man, this is even beyond what I can't imagine there was, because you got so used to her being out there in the community loving it.
Well, and I think, it maybe in the very beginning, it taught me kind of a sense of how you're supposed to react.
Exactly.
Because for me, again, and not really being brought into this business, this moment of being recognized by everyone, it was a little startling for me. But I watched her deal with it and act like she's just your neighbor.
This is supposed to be
and
how
even
it's,
though everybody's coming in
Yeah.
to be next to Donna Britt, she's just your neighbor. And that's what taught me that that's what we are. We're just neighbors on TV. And we're just working people that happen to be in the studio. And she really personified that. She didn't really ever have a time that I saw where she didn't have a moment for you or you or you out in the community. And you saw that by the countless hours of ringing the bell at the kettle. And you saw it by all of the examples of volunteerism that Donna did in the community that Greg demonstrated with that package. And so, yeah, she really is not just an icon and an image for Baton Rouge, but she is a model servant for people in this business to follow. Because if you do for your community half of what Donna did for our community in terms of giving up her time, her life, her freedom to be out there with you, well, then you're certainly going to make an impression here. And so she really was more than just a teammate at Channel 9. She really was sort of a figurehead and in the way of how to do this job right, both in the studio and outside on the street corner.
An absolute community servant.
To the epitome.
You're right.
She walked the walk and talked the talk.
Yeah, and she never bragged about it.
No.
That's really a big part of it. You know, she really was a pretty humble person.
You talk about some of the folks she was able to mentor. We actually have somebody on the phone, one of those young reporters back in the day, who is actually now working in the office of the governor, John Bell Edwards. Yeah. Shauna Sanford on the phone with us this morning. Shauna, I don't know if you remember, but you were here when I first got here, and I remember looking up to you as well. You were actually on the desk, on the set as well, co-anchoring and still out in the field. And curious this morning, your thoughts of our friend Donna.
Well, Matt, it's so great to talk with you, and unfortunately for such a sad occasion as this. And you're right, I am was one of those young reporters that she mentored, and you know, my heart is heavy, and so I am sharing all of the thoughts. I'm flooded with memories, and you and Liz are doing such a beautiful job, and Greg's story was just so poignant, and really told the story of Donna. I didn't live here in Baton Rouge. I'm from Louisiana, but lived in Shreveport, but would come home often to visit family and friends. And we were watching Donna Britt and George Sells. That was the station. And so when I thought about getting into business and becoming an anchor and had the opportunity to come to WAFB, that's where I wanted to start. That's where I wanted to work. And when I got the job, man, I can't tell you how excited I was to be able to work with Donna Britt. I mean, it was just incredible. I almost couldn't even believe that I was actually there with Donna and also and with George. And I will tell you, being a green reporter, you want somebody who's going to encourage you. And she was exactly that for me. She was an encourager. She welcomed me with open arms. I did not know what in the world I was doing. She assured me that I was going to get it and that I was going to be good at it. I had talent, and she was going to be my cheerleader, and she was exactly that. And you talk about a hard worker. She was really a hard worker in that newsroom, and I'll always remember that, you know, being a young reporter, I would see her in the news bay right next to me, working on her stories and putting them together and going through the video and working with the photographers. And she really, she did walk the walk and talk the talk. And she was a hard worker, and she was a great example, and she was a role model. And I feel so blessed and so fortunate to have known her and to have been mentored by her and to work alongside her. And it was just an honor. It really was. And Matt, you and I were there together.
Sure were.
Those were some incredible days. They really were some incredible days.
Well, Shauna, I have no doubt that Donna Britt is proud of you. Obviously, you've moved on. You are now the governor's communications director, and you do a great job over there. And more than anything, you are kind and you are a hard worker. Also traits that Donna Britt had too. So I have no doubt she's so proud of you.
Oh, well, I appreciate those kind words. I really do. And I remember, the last time that I was actually with her was there when she said goodbye on the station. And, the thing is that you could pick up right where you left off and never miss a beat with Donna.
Yeah.
I mean, she was just so happy to see me. I was so happy to see her, and it was just like, we picked up right where we left off. And I'll tell you, when I left Channel 9 and moved on to WWL in New Orleans, she was still right there cheering me on, and it helped me because I was excited about it, but nervous about it. And Channel 9 was where I started. It was home. And it nurtured me, and it helped me to grow. And that's where I learned so much. And so I was nervous about it. And she encouraged me. She said, Shauna, this is a great opportunity, and you're going to fly. And, she just periodically, I would see her sometimes whenever I would come back, and we'd pick up just like we never left off. And the last time that I saw her, it was the same way. And I got to tell you guys, she was so proud of her kids. I don't think we could ever say enough about how proud she was of her children. And they should know that she shared with us how much she loved them and how proud she was of them. They were her life and the apples of her eye. Absolutely.
No, it's absolutely true. I remember back before everybody took photos on phones, and we had 1,000 of them in our pocket at any time. There was one birthday, I can't remember which one it was for Louis, maybe his 4th, maybe his 5th, I'm trying to remember. But it was Louis for president. Right? That was the theme. That was the theme, and came in with pictures and just all of it. I mean, like you said, loved family, and just she had a very extended family as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She just wrapped her arms around everybody who came into that newsroom. And it didn't matter whether you were in the newsroom. If you were at WFB, I mean, she extended her love to everyone in that station, outside of that station, and we'll always, always remember her for that, always.
Well, Shauna, thank you so much. Appreciate your time this morning on a difficult day for South Louisiana and so many folks. But we certainly wanted to get you on and share a few memories from somebody who, like you said, grew up in the business with her right there, helping to guide along the way. Shauna, thank you so much again. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Bye now. And so, she talked about, and I was going to ask Shauna, I was going to ask her before she answered it to herself. I was going to ask her, I was going to say, hey, when you decided to move on, who was your biggest cheerleader? Fully knowing what the answer was going to be, knowing it was going to be Donna, because Donna did that for everybody here. This is not the end for a lot of reporters and anchors. They continue to want to go, and kind of challenge new challenges. And this place is never going to stop you from doing that. They're going to make sure you're ready to go, and they're going to encourage you on that journey. And Donna did that for everybody who moved on. Hey, we're always here for you. Let us know what else we can do. You've got this. You've earned it. You're ready.
She was your biggest cheerleader,
really,
in everyone's corner. And I think something that made Donna so special and that made us relate to her, that made you feel like she was your mom, and even for you at home, is that Donna had true compassion and empathy. She could make you feel like she was in your house talking to you and holding your hand, making sure that you knew you were loved and that everything was going to be okay. I know that I keep saying that, but that's just the feeling that I have when I think of Donna and how reassured she made me feel. And I know that I speak for a lot of us here at Channel 9, she made you feel special.
Well, you knew walking into the newsroom every single day that at the end of the day it was going to be okay. Like I said before, there was that security blanket. And she and George, as that team, made sure that, all right, go out, do your thing. We've got it when you come back. We've got you covered. And it was incredible to be a part of that team.
And we've also got someone special here on the phone with us, someone who has stepped in to fill the role of Donna after she had retired in June of 2018. Elizabeth Vowell, she's joining us now on the phone. Hey, Liz.
Hey, Liz and Matt. A tough day to be talking today.
Yeah. You you were able to be a part of this for such a very long time, and now you get to essentially stand where Donna stood as well. And she talked about being, on the shoulders of giants, but she is one of those giants, and to be able to do what she does, what she did every day, it's an honor for all of us. And just curious, your thoughts this morning.
Matt, she is the giant, exactly. And the most terrifying thing that I have ever done in my life was to step into her shoes. When they told me that that was going to be my honor to do, I was terrified, because how do you follow Donna Britt? How do you pick up the mantle that she built over 4 decades? And especially after she announced her retirement, seeing, the impact of Donna Britt, but, hearing the stories, but seeing how many people she touched every single day, it is overwhelming, and such a humbling thing to see one woman do so much for our community and mean so much for our community. So that was honestly one of the scariest things and most important things I think that I've ever done in my career, was to be able to step into her shoes. But in classic Donna fashion, she was the one that was my biggest cheerleader. Mm-hmm. When she left, I put it up on my Facebook page, she left me the sweetest note saying, you're going to do great. And she sent me flowers that first day, and she was the first person to say, you are going to do a good job, and I am proud of you. And I still have that note from those flowers that she sent me, and to hear those words from her, for her to look at me and say, I'm proud of you, and have fun, that meant the world to me. And I think that and that's just classic Donna. As you said, she's a mentor, and she was always looking for ways to lift up the people around her, and she did that for every single one of us. The first time I met Donna, I love this story, because I'm often accused of being way too serious, and Donna is one of those people who reminded me to have fun with myself, that it's okay to laugh, it's okay to have fun, and not take yourself so seriously. The first time I met her, when I came onto Channel 9, Matt, I was working with you guys on the morning. I was on the morning show for those first 6 months, and I had not had the chance to meet Donna or Andre Mora, who was her co-anchor at the time, or any of the evening crew, because you're on the complete opposite shifts. But there was the hurricane came through, I think it was Isaac, in 2012, and I had worked overnight, 12-hour shift, been out in the rain with photographer Brandon Shackelford since like 2 a.m. or something like that. At that point, it was probably like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was soaked to the bone, grumpy, tired, just, I looked like a wet cat coming into the newsroom. And suddenly this tiny woman was running up to me squealing and had me in her full embrace before I could even say hello. And I was looking around, and that was my meeting of Donna Britt. And she, even in that moment, just, anybody who saw me probably saw, she's probably in a bad mood right now. But Donna was the one who ran up and hugged me and just said, I just wanted to welcome you here. I've been watching you, girl. You were doing a good job. We're so excited to have you. And, for her to do that in that moment, just completely changed my day. And she always kind of had that way of changing her day and changing her perspective.
She had that special effect, and I think you summed it up perfectly, is that right from the get-go, even if she doesn't know you, she's never met you, she's going to love on you the special way
absolutely.
That Donna does.
Yeah, and Matt, you talk about hearing the words, Matt, baby, and I can hear her saying that too so clearly, but also her greetings, Earthlings. That was her standard
that's right.
Go-to.
In the newsroom every evening. And I don't think she had such a whimsy about her. She was so goofy in the most lovable way, and she was so whimsical in the most wonderful way. And those are the things that I remember and I hear in my head of greetings, Earthlings, and baby, and all those just wonderful Donnaisms.
For the longest time, for the last couple of years, certainly, everywhere I go, the overriding greeting is, "Hey, man, how you doing?" And then there is, "Hey, how's Donna doing?" Mm-hmm. Everybody wanted. That's just me. Someone who actually, as you mentioned, as you said, and as you put it, stepped into her shoes. I got to imagine that is the greeting for you over the last number of years.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And, it's always tough to answer when with her battling ALS because you know Donna and you know that she is always going to put on a brave front, and sincerely so. She never backed down from a battle, and she never let it get her down. You know, that was when she was diagnosed. She said, I'm not looking at this as me dying. I'm living with ALS, and I'm going to use this to highlight this struggle for other people. So that was always kind of I guess the silver lining in all this was we were able to say, you know what, she's fighting. She's doing as absolutely well she can, and you know, her spirits were never down. Every time that I saw her, she smiled. Unfortunately, the last time that I saw her in person was at the LAB Awards last year, right before everything shut down with COVID. You know, I had truly hoped that I could introduce her to Nobi, to my little girl, before she passed. But, you know, with COVID, you know, big precautions have to be taken. So I know we all got together and sent her videos at some point during the pandemic to update her on everybody's life. And I got to send her a video of Nobi, so I know she got to see that. And Liz, I heard you say she got to meet her grandbaby, and I'm just so happy to hear that. And what a blessing that is that she was able to see her grandbaby.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being with us on as we've all kind of talked about, a difficult day to find the words in a business where we're supposed to find the words. So it's kind of challenging, but it's fun to talk about our friend. It's fun to talk about the memories.
Thank you so much, Liz. We appreciate you.
Yeah, love you guys, and we'll see y'all later.
All right, we'll see you this afternoon. Thank you, Liz. You know, one of the things that Donna did almost from jump when there was the diagnosis, she took to social media, took to Facebook. Those Facebook Lives became must see. I want to know how Donna's doing. And she made it okay for others going through the same kind of thing to have a platform as well and say, look, I'm going through this as well. How are you doing? But social media became such an incredible way for her to get her message out there and for everybody else to get on the inside of Donna. Social media today is certainly talking about it.
It is powerful to see, especially because she used her special community on Facebook to share her journey in ALS, and I know so many of you responded by saying, I'm praying for you, I love you, Donna, and I want to keep knowing how you're doing. And on social media today, as you said, we're seeing an outpouring of support. We want to get to Donovan Jackson in the First Alert Center to see some of that support. Donovan?
Yes, definitely a lot of outpouring of support from the social media community. And apologize, my heart is fluttering a little bit right now, but I just want to kind of show you some of the things on Twitter that folks are posting. Mayor President Sharon Westenbroom posting a tweet not long ago to know Donna was to love her. Not only was her talent as an anchor part of the fabric of our community, but her heart for this community was evident in her countless service. That's from Mayor Sharon Westenbroom. Another tweet from Governor John Bell Edwards saying that he and his wife were very sad to hear the passing of Donna Britt. She was a true master of her craft and a brave fighter in her courageous battle against ALS. She will be missed by the countless Louisianians she reached out to and informed. Others posting on social media, Manship School saying that we're deeply saddened to learn of the passing of our beloved journalist Donna Britt. Her passion for the students there and the school was second to none, and she was honored as a Manship Hall of Fame inductee, and she served on LSU's Student Media Board for several years, so definitely touching the lives of students in mass communication. Also, over at station WBRZ, Sylvia Weatherspoon, who was an anchor there, recently did a report on her journey, tells us that she is heartbroken of the loss of her longtime friend, Donna Britt. And again, she did a special when Donna Britt retired. So definitely beautiful words from them. The Baton Rouge Fire Department, again, saying that we're saddened to hear of the passing of longtime news anchor Donna Britt. Donna was a wonderful friend to the fire service and was always there to lend a helping hand. She will truly be missed. Our prayers are with the family. Thanks for your memories, Donna. And so many others outpouring of support for the community. I had a chance for not long to get to know Donna Britt, but I did get a brief chance to know her. But a funny story, it's full circle how this happens, if I could take a moment. I got a chance to meet Donna Britt when I was a little boy, when I went to the River Center, Centralplex then, for a showing of the Nutcracker. And I was so excited to meet her, and she was so sweet. And she looked at me and she said, young man, she said, you're going to be something great one day. You're going to get to use your voice one day. And it's crazy how 20 years later, I got to sit in a newsroom with her in a meeting discussing the news. And I told her about the story, and I told her I was so excited to meet her because she felt like a little celebrity to me. But surprisingly, she turned to me and said, no, I'm excited to meet you. And so a celebrity wasn't anything to her. To her, she was a person just like all of us. And I think that's what made so many of us love her. And I really think that I got my job here because I remember one day when I was interning, we were sitting in that room and she looked over and she said, young man, she said, if they don't hire you, they are crazy. And she said it loud enough for folks there. So I don't know if it was her that helped me get my job, but I definitely am grateful and thankful to get to know her, as so many of you all are as well. Again, she just touched the community so much with her service and her support for everything that she did. So we'll continue to follow up. Please continue to send your pictures and share your stories about Donna as we continue to follow her legacy and the work that she did in this community. Back over to you guys.
Donovan, thank you. And I think the fact that everyone has a personal story to share with her goes to show how special Donna is, and who better to share how special she is than someone who was her boss before.
Yeah, former news director here, Vicki Zimmerman, who actually hired me back in the day, her worst hire ever. But the ability to work with somebody like Donna Britt, Vicki Zimmerman, good of you to be with us this morning. I can't even imagine the memories you have of our friend.
Well, you know, I'm so honored that you called and that Rob called me this morning to give me the heads up. You know, we all love Donna, and you guys are certainly proving that with the tribute that y'all are offering today. And I just, you know, I want to take a moment just again to extend my sympathy to Mark and Annie and Louie and everyone at WFB and everyone really in the WFB community for this loss. It is. Okay, we're all going to get a little emotional, and so just bear with me. You know, Donna, and I don't know if anyone has really said this yet, Donna never had a bad day. I worked with Donna for more than 20 years. She never had a bad day. Okay, I can count twice. She had a bad moment, but never a bad day. She was, I used to tell her all the time, and I'm older than Donna, but I used to tell her all the time, I want to grow up to be Donna Britt. She was the most positive person I've ever known, not just worked with. And believe me, in our business, you guys know, you go through some really tough days, but she never had a bad day. And some of the things, I hope people go to the website and read so much more about Donna. The little things that no one knew about, like her work with Progress Elementary and being their library elf. And all of that, she would Progress Elementary in her city school, elementary school, and she almost single-handedly stocked their library. And no one ever knew that, except for the folks there at Progress. I used to, kind of funny, used to ask Donna to MC a big event where there were going to be thousands of people, and Don's like, no, I'm sorry, I can't. I've already committed to this other thing that I'm doing. And this other thing may have been a little luncheon with or a little tea with some little ladies in a neighborhood that she had committed. And I was like, but Donna, these are thousands of people. You'll be able to speak to. She says, yeah, but I've already made this commitment. So many things that Donna never got the credit for, and nor did she want the credit for. I remembered she'd had a surgery and couldn't drive. Well, she had committed to a community baby shower, that she was going to host a community baby shower for a sorority, but she couldn't drive there, so she called me up and said, you've got to bring me. I'm like, okay, Donna, I'll bring you. We went. There probably weren't a dozen people there, but Donna had committed to doing this, and she wasn't going to back down from that commitment, whether it were thousands of people or whether it was a handful or whether it was providing ice cream. Monthly, she would do that for Progress Elementary, for the kids who the class who read the most books.
Yep.
And that's who Donna Britt was. She was exactly the person that you saw on television every day, but she was that person in little, small, intimate groups all around Baton Rouge and in the area who she committed to, and she never ever broke a commitment. She never told someone she would do something and didn't follow through, even if she had to talk her boss into bringing her to that baby shower. And I did it, and you know, I'd have stood on my head and gargled peanut butter for Donna Britt. She gave so much of herself to so many people, whether it were thousands that she was somewhat getting the credit for, or whether it was just a handful of students at a little inner city school who needed more books. She was truly the most loving and giving person I have ever known, and I am honored every day of my life to have known Donna Britt and to have called her my friend, like so many people could do.
Vicki, and I think you are in such a unique position where you were her boss. You saw her early on in her career and throughout the years. Can you talk about just her growth as a person and just how she evolved being here?
Well, let me tell you, no one was ever Donna Britt's boss, except maybe Mark Ballard and her children.
That's so accurate.
Because Donna Britt was so devoted to what she did professionally, you never had to direct Donna to do something. Donna would pick up the mantle and just run with it. As far as her growth, gosh, the only thing that she could have done to have grown more was to sing with the angels in heaven, which I truly believe she is doing right now. She has her full voice, and she is singing hymns with the angels in heaven right now. Because, wow, that lady definitely earned her place in heaven, no doubt about it. Again, I want to grow up to be like Donna Britt.
But wouldn't it be nice to be all able to do that? Vicki, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Appreciate it. I know, as like you said, nobody was her boss, but as the boss in the newsroom, I know it was a comforting feeling knowing that everything was taken care of in the studio once it got to that point, just having somebody like her there. So
absolutely. And thank you guys for honoring her in this way. It is so well deserved. And I hope that the community can embrace a little bit of who Donna Britt was, and perhaps we'll have a kinder, gentler community because of her.
Love every bit of that. Wouldn't that be something? Vicki, thank you for your time this morning. Thank you, sweetie.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
So, kind of gone around the circle here a little bit, talking with some folks who knew her from the start, and but again, somebody who was right there by her side as she signed off. Our Greg Merriweather joining us again. Greg, your story was beautiful. And we got many more beautiful stories to talk about and share about over the next, number of days, weeks, months, years. But we certainly have been able to hear a lot of good this morning.
Yes, Matt, some stories are easier to write than others. That one was actually an easy one to do just because it's so easy to write a story about Donna Britt, because she is just, she's the best character you'd ever want to use. Since I am at home, because we, spread out with COVID, I'm healthy, everything's good. But I wanted to show you, I went and looked in our bedroom and found this. This was the wedding gift that Donna Britt gave me and my wife, and she actually made it. And she asked me a few questions, and then she knew a lot of the things. But she starts here with Once Upon a Time, and then she writes in it. And then she circles all the way around here and tells our good story. So I'm going to post this on my WAFB social media page so you can see it. But it just goes to show you just how terrific Donna is. The story that she wrote in here is the story of my life, and I just appreciate her so much for little things like that. She was such a talented artist and such a talented broadcaster. Vicki said it right. What you see is what you get. And so we certainly appreciate the tremendous amount that she's left on our hearts, and we will pay tribute to our terrific friend all throughout this day.
Greg, thank you so much, and he's exactly right. We'll see you tonight, right here in this studio that she helped build from the ground up. Our friend Donna Britt passing away today.
We know so many of you want to pay your tributes too. We are still waiting to hear about services and whatnot, but we assure you we will keep you posted, because as we've been mentioning, we are mourning together.
Please continue to share your thoughts and your memories of Donna with us on social media. You are the reason she did what she did. Serving meant so much to her, and we're going to continue to honor that legacy of hers. Thank you for being with us.